this under the Customer Success Pro. So I basically help customer success managers feel revenue confident and commercially confident in the conversations they're having with their customers. I work with teams around the world, even though I'm based in London in the UK, as Joey mentioned. But I work with teams globally on really, again, being revenue focused and commercially ready to have some tough conversations that we do end up having in CS, whether it's a renewal conversation, identifying upsells, making sure we do risk analysis, all of those fun things. Super honored to be here for this conversation.
I appreciate the introduction. I feel like I always have to give a brief apology because I'm like, hey, everyone, I'm Texan. I'm going to say y'all during this conversation, and I will not be able to stop myself from saying that. So one of the first questions I thought of, it's something that I've seen be really common in the mentor and mentorship, the mentorship program just in general, is some of the mentees struggling to have these conversations around revenue. They're like, no, I really want to help this person out, but like we do have this goal that we had to hit. So for you, whenever you're talking about supporting people make this transition in mindset, what are some of the most common barriers you get to see in the ways that you have tackled?
Yeah, I love this, by the way, because if you just want to zoom out a little bit for everyone that's listening, like money is yucky. Like no one wants to talk about it. Just think about it. Like some in our human lives, we barely even share money things amongst friends or family and sometimes I really hope not, but sometimes even our spouses, right? And so I think that money is almost given a dirty word, which is really unfortunate because if you think about it, it is how businesses are run. It's what businesses are trying to do every day. And a lot of the customer success professionals that I end up working with, I like to remind them that our job is to protect and grow revenue in customer success. And unless you're working for a charity or you're working for free, you're probably getting paid money to do your job. And so money is not as gross or as icky as we like to make it. And I think we end up putting ourselves almost in a very tough position before we even have the money conversations with our customers because we put this blocker out there that, oh, it's a yucky conversation or it's like really uncomfortable, but your customers are paying. They're not there for free unless you have a free product. Again, I'm talking about paid B2B SaaS customers. They are paying for your product and service. And believe it or not, they are paying for Joey or for Michael to show up on a call because your companies are costing in your salaries into what we call cost of goods sold, essentially, in businesses. And they are costing in your salary to acquiring customers and keeping customers. So, as much as we get so icky as humans about money, it's so important to remember that everything around us, like as ugly as it might sound, money does run our world, it runs our economy, it runs our day to day. Like everything you do, there is an exchange of money for a service, right? And so when your customers are coming up for a conversation and a call, it's really not that deep or that like difficult because they're expecting it. They're paying for your service, so they're expecting you to have that conversation. It's really probably more to do with us than it has to do with them if we feel uncomfortable about having that conversation. So at least that's what I like to share is that unless you were working for free, money is all around us and money is again what our companies are trying to do every single day and it's also by the way what your customers are trying to do with your product as well. They're trying to either save some money or make some money by using your service.
I think that's a great answer. And before I pass the baton over to Priscilla for the rest of moderation, you mentioned I love your experience behind this, and I kind of want you to dial in on something for me. When did that mindset really click in for you in your own career? Like, where was that
Yeah.
moment for you where you had it? Because I think some people are like, oh, like I want to be that way. When was it for you that it really clicked?
Yeah, I think to be completely fair, it clicked when I was in IC, but invited into some of the like senior executive meetings, essentially. There was no like head of, and I was just the most senior customer success manager in that organization. It was a scale up. And like the executive team meeting, which I wasn't normally part of, but sometimes they invited me to have like, can you give us an update on customer XYZ or can you give us a health score update or these things? And when I was in that meeting for like only like 30 minutes or an hour, I started to really hear the other executives and how they talked about the business and what they were even saying behind these elusive closed door boardroom meetings, which all they did, by the way, whether they were in product, in finance, in marketing, in sales, the whole executive team was talking about how to actually grow the business. They weren't talking about like how this product is going to launch. Yes, they might have talked a little bit about that, but at the end of the conversation, they were always saying, okay, what kind of growth are we going to expect when we launch into this new market? Or what kind of money are we going to make when this new feature releases? Or when this marketing campaign goes live, like how many customers can we convert and how much money is that going to be in new sales? I started to, again, I showed up at that meeting to just share customer updates. And then I sat quietly and listened. And every single person, no matter what their title was tying everything back to like profitability and growth for the company. And I was at a small startup, but then again, as I progressed in my career at every type of company I was at, whenever I was talking to executives, it's literally the same thing that came up. The same thread was common in a 5-person startup to a 500-person company, right? And so it's like it started to really click for me like, whoa, all these companies are trying to do is make and grow the money so that they can obviously hire people and pay people, but then build cool products and sell those cool products, right? And so I think for me, once I started hearing those executives say that, it made me realize how much I can take what's in the boardroom and apply it as a CSM. And then one other thing I'll say is that like I always tell everyone I work with, like as a CSM, you are the CEO. You're the CEO of your book of business, and you decide exactly how that book of business is managed, what's good for it, what's bad for it. And you got to kind of think in that CEO mindset, which is, I'm trying to grow business here. I'm trying to close more deals. I'm trying to build more products. I'm trying to market to new customers. And all of that comes with the mindset of growth and revenue. And so for me, that's where it kind of clicked for me, where I was like, oh my gosh, everyone brings it back to like growth or money growth or revenue growth.
Finger snaps. That's all I got for that.
Anika is a friend. She's an amazing like CS leader. So I'm so like lucky that we get to experience and learn from her. And I'm also super grateful that you're here. And I noticed in the room that we have more mentors than mentees. So shout out to all of our mentors in this cohort. We will share the recording with the mentees and the rest of the group, but this section is especially for the cohort, the 2026 cohort. I'm really grateful that you're here. But I'm curious, I don't know if you did touch this in the first few minutes with Joey, but because I couldn't hear you guys. But I know you've been training teams all over different countries, different places. I'm curious to hear if there's like a few things that you could share with us in terms of pain points and things that you've been hearing. What are some of the skills that CS leaders are bringing you to train their teams on?
I think it's a great question. So I've been like working with teams as small as, like I said, they have like 5, 6 CSMs. So they're really in the startup phase, and then teams with like 500 CSMs. So it's like every scale, every type, and all around the world, like you said, Priscilla. And I think the common thing that everyone, I think the tension that companies are facing, especially within customer success, is one, like we've really gone through this era of like layoffs and like customer success not being seen as a mission critical function. And as such, let's reduce headcount. But then the additional pressure of like, okay, we need to figure out how to use AI within our organizations, whether it's internally or customer facing. I'd say that's the second problem. But the main reason leaders are realizing like we need to like train and up level our CSMs is and I'm a little bit biased because again I come from a sales background and I've always carried a quota and I've always had like a commission based structure to my roles, but also every CSM that's ever worked for me. Like you've never been on just you've always had to achieve sales targets essentially for lack of better terms to earn 100% of your salary. And what CS I think is really starting to lean into is more heavily into the we need to grow our customer accounts. We can't just retain them. We do retain them. It's a big part of our role to make sure everything we do leads to positive renewal and making that renewal sale happen. But I feel like the pain point is realizing like it's no longer as easy to acquire new logos. So we need to grow our existing customers as much as possible. So the push from the board to the C suite, to the CS leaders, and then to the CSMs is like, listen, you have a million dollars in ARR in your book of business, it needs to be 1.2 by the end of the year. So like how are we going to do that, right? Like what are we going to do to get to that 1.2? And yes, Mike, it's all about NRR, but it is come down to that. It used to a lot be about GRR and like let's make sure we do not lose or lose as few customers as possible. But I feel like the 2026 pressure is like we need to either directly close as many upsells as possible, or I know there's a lot of teams that are more complex and larger, and they have like AEs or account managers that close the deal, but those teams are now being compensated and also being recognized as strategic when they generate enough CSQLs or enough leads based on upsell opportunity essentially. So I think the main skill that I've been training on this year is moving away from a check-in call, how to actually derive value in a call and not just checking in. So what is the language that needs to happen in a call with your customer, whether it's monthly, weekly, quarterly, I don't care how often. The other thing that I've been training on is executive language, like customers that are executive buyers that hold the budget that actually have the renewal and upsell, they don't want to talk about your features. They don't want to talk about your roadmap. They don't even want to see your slides. They barely want to see your email, but they do want to have a consultative, strategic conversation about how your product is actually going to grow their business. And there's a very different language when you are senior stakeholder mapping and making sure you're showing that value at that executive level. And then the final thing I'll say that we've been training on a lot is objection handling. And really, there's a lot of objections flying around because customers are looking at other products. AI tools are popping up left, right, and center. There's a lot more threat of customers saying, "Oh, well, it's cheaper here," or actually, because you're asking for more this year, I'm gonna look at other options and other vendors. And so there's a lot more tougher objections that CS is having to deal with. And so we've been training a lot on how to react to those objections as well. So that's like probably for so the three most common things.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. I was curious because you're inside of those rooms, right? And you hear like,
Yeah.
what are they asking? Some of the pain points I heard. I was at a conference this week with the room full of CEOs, and a lot of them were talking about that. How like the cost of acquisition went up from $1 to $5 to most of them.
Crazy. Yeah.
You can no longer afford to make certain mistakes, and how a lot of
And
them
then
are
a VC
implementing.
isn't gonna give you 5
Yeah,
mil off the bat anymore, or and, like, investors are just not gonna say, "Okay, it went up to $5, let me 5x my investment." It's not like that anymore. A few years ago, you could just go back to your investors, or you could go back and say, like, "No worries, costs have gone up, we'll get some more cash," and it's just not the case, but that's crazy, 5x. That's a cool stat. I didn't even know that.
yeah, it was crazy to hear, but a lot of them are like finding solutions, like you mentioned with the AI, right? They're replacing the
Yeah.
SDRs teams with the
Mm.
AI SDRs. Like, one 120K that could do the job of like 6 or 10 SDRs. A lot of them are kind of like moving the needle in that way.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, no, this is like a that's why I brought you here because you're the one that I know that can like say the truth. Like, all right, we got to chase the money. We can't be afraid. We cannot afford to just, be relationship manager. We have to focus
No,
on
but I think if
where,
anyone's threatened by like an AI bot taking your job, the only thing they're going to take from you is the ability to manage a calendar, the ability to like look at data and analyze that data, but your ability to storytell that to an executive, your ability to build a relationship that articulates the value of your product, AI isn't there yet. Maybe it will be someday. I don't know what's going to happen. But for now, I think the biggest thing, if AI is your co pilot, it can help you have those strategic decisions and conversations faster and easier with your customers. But if you are just gonna, and I tell a lot of people I work with, I'm like, if you're just gonna put a slide deck together and tell me about how I used your product and what happened since onboarding and what to expect in a renewal, ChatGPT can do the same thing for me. Claude Work can definitely do that for me. Like, I don't need you in this room. I don't need you in the Zoom call. What are you doing here? Right. And so it's the harsh truth, but it's honest. And it's like, if we're like, CS has been under a lot of pressure, but I think right now it's like an opportunity to really reshape being seen as a strategic revenue partner if you want to lean into it. But if you don't, then you're going to be honestly, you're going to be left in the dust and then you're going to be wondering why your a bot is doing your job.
yeah, I agree. And I know we have 10 minutes left, and I want to make sure like we have enough time for questions so we can open up for questions and then we can go from there. Let's see what do we have. Do we have anything in the chat? No, but feel free to unmute, and we have like a small room here, so this is your chance.
I don't bite, and there's no stupid questions or wrong things to say.
Anika, I'll tee up. I'll get the conversation started here, right?
Yeah.
Are you seeing post sales professionals getting more into traditional account planning type cycles? In other words, developing that account plan roadmap for their customers on literally, here's where they are, here's what they may need to buy next, and starting to do that road mapping or planning as part of that.
I am into a certain degree, Michael. So especially I feel like the products and services that are a bit more complex. So if you have like multiple products or you also have different solutions to offer as well, because I think like if it's a one and done SaaS solution, they're not planning to that degree. But I know, for example, a team I worked with last week, they're a true enterprise software. They have like 15 products within their suite of products. And so they very much plan like, okay, in year one, it's likely based on your use case that you're going to need XYZ within our product and service. So once you hit this milestone, we're going to introduce the next product and we're going to just give you a demo slash like usage of that for a certain period of time. So I know that CSMs at like again, very much more complex. So I wouldn't say it's probably everyone. I think everyone's still doing what I'd say is traditional success planning. So mapping out how you're going to use the product, what you're going to get out of using the product. Are we mapping milestones of growth? Not yet. I hope we get there. I know that some, like I said, the more complex enterprise software is definitely doing it because it is more complex and the buying cycle and the upsell cycle it's got to be teed up. It's much longer.
Thank you, Michael. I also
Other
want to make sure you
questions,
have
team?
enough time to share some of the things that you're doing also with the group because I'm going to share the recording later. I want to make
Yeah.
sure everyone knows like who you're helping in terms of like types of teams, how you help them, and so
Yeah.
everybody can have access to that as well.
Oh, I love that. Thanks, Priscilla, for giving me a moment to share. But like I said, I've built the Customer Success Pro, which is basically a coaching and enablement company. There's three ways that we help customer success professionals. One is what I consider to the individual. Like if you're looking for help and guidance when it comes to being revenue minded and commercially savvy, I have RevUp Academy. It's a 6-week cohort based coaching program that's fully certified. So you get an actual certified certificate at the end and it's recognized and it's something that shows that you're actually leveling up when it comes to sales strategies and skills. And then the two other ways that I help is more on a level of like if your team needs help. So like a if you're a company or you're a CS leader and you're like, listen, my whole customer success management team needs some help leveling up and hitting 120 NRR. And the way I help in that way is through corporate workshops or training sessions. So like they're half day training sessions where I come in and we train on things like moving away from check-in calls to value calls or how to objection handle during renewals and upsells is another popular topic or the right discovery and white space analysis to actually identify upsells is another topic that we do a workshop on. So that's been very popular with like my corporate clients, meaning anyone who has a CS team that needs to train the full team. And then the final way that I help is once you've done a workshop with me and your full team, we have what we call revenue labs. So once a month, it's a retainer where everything we built in that workshop, we basically hold the team accountable. So I am literally your 120% NRR accountability partner. So you go work on your strategy, CS leader, you go work and talk to the board. I am working every month with your CSMs to hit that 120 NRR. Those are the three services that we offer. So thanks, Priscilla, for letting me share it.
This is awesome. Yeah, I didn't even know you had like so many things now.
Yeah,
Um,
that's 2026 is crazy.
yeah, I know you've been busy and like speaking and coaching
Yeah.
and running cohorts and all that kind of stuff. I'm curious though, what are you seeing teams using in terms of tools and whether they're AI, Copilot, or anything like that? Are you seeing like one thing shining more than the other, or is that a big mix? Because I know sometimes companies tend to like every company though they use a different set of tools. Are you seeing any?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like everyone has their own tool set. I think right now there's a mix of happening where all the tools that you're probably already currently using are feeding AI into something. Like everything
Mhm.
these days, like whether you're on any CSP, right? Like Gainsight, Turn Zero, they all say they have AI components. So I think there's that side of AI and tooling that a lot of people are using. But there's so many new tools that I'm like, whoa, this is so crazy. This is so cool. Like I was just introduced to like Back Engine and they're like taking everything from every CRM, every like data point you have and they're helping you articulate value. They're helping you just really figure out what's next for that account and they're using it from like a conversational data perspective, but also from like a product usage perspective, which I thought was really cool too. And then there's like so many new tools out there, but I feel like the two ways teams are using new tool or tooling is one is their current tech stack is offering something AI, which is really cool. And that's awesome. They're starting to use that. Or I know a lot of people are internally training their own like Claude model bot and their own AI bots as well. I know that's a tooling perspective. I think, and I always say this, and I'm pretty sure everyone's sick of hearing it, but your tool really depends on what you're trying to achieve. Like if like I could say Turn Zero is great or Gainsight's great or Vitally and all these tools are great, but it really just depends on the maturity of your team, the maturity of your product, and the maturity of your customer base and what you're trying to achieve. Because every tool these days, especially with AI, can do a multitude of things.
Yeah, I agree. And companies tend to have, but I'm seeing more and more that the need of like reducing that.
Oh,
Companies are not
100%.
renewing like a lot of tools at once like they did before. They're like cutting. Okay, the AI tool can do like five things combined, so we're gonna
Mm.
stay with this one. Yeah, no, you're totally right. I had something else here, but it escaped my mind right now. I don't know what happened. Michael, you have a question? That's what I do. I always push it to Michael.
Poor Michael has to have a question ready all the time.
Well, I was going to get to the point of I asked her a little bit about the okay, where do you see the account planning part of it? What does CS? Let's put your individual coaching hat on, maybe. What are you seeing or coaching that individual CS staff need, CSMs need to add to their skill set so they'll be better suited to ask those types of discovery questions, look for the symptoms for those upsell expansions wherever
Mhm.
they are. What's the gap that you're seeing as a trend that everyone should say, "Oh, I gotta learn more about this"?
Okay, it's going to be really simple. Stop thinking about your product, stop thinking about you and just think about them. Like I couldn't say it more clearly, but we really do have this problem in SaaS and if you've ever heard me speak in person, I've said it too. It's called a wee problem and we all over our customers. And I mean to be cute and funny when I say that, but it's true. I think that we as customer success professionals just put ourselves, our product, our company first. But I think the one skill, if there's anything I could say that you could really train and get better at, is how to speak with the customer first, like with their outcomes, their business growth first. And then once you figure out what they want to do, how does your product and service actually help them do that? So, really quickly, if we all know Coca-Cola, what if you were the CEO of Coca-Cola, what are you trying to do? I'm guessing sell more Coca-Cola and beat Pepsi, right? So my job as the CSM at Salesforce that works at Coca-Cola as my account, I would be like, okay, I'm going to help you sell more Coca-Cola through Salesforce doing XYZ. But what we tend to do is talk about Salesforce first and then talk about Coca-Cola. So my biggest tip is about putting the customer first and then your product and service second. I guess that's the training tip I use a lot. And I think that if any CSM can benefit, it's like think about what they're trying to do and then figure out how your product fits into that.
Well, I couldn't think of a better way to finish this because this is like a mic drop. It's such a good tip because it's something, like you said, so simple, but we often forget, right? Like one of my teachers once taught me, like in a writing class, he's like, okay, now that you finish writing, like I want you to cross all the I's that you have in your essay. And there were a lot of I's. So he's like, you're going to remove all the I's and you're going to
Mm,
switch that to the U's, like because it's
yeah,
about them, it's not about you.
yeah.
So it was amazing to see the whole class, like how many eyes we had to count the eyes and mark it. And he was like checking on everybody. And I see that very often when CSMs are writing emails. There is a lot of eyes.
There's a lot of
I
it's our
want, I
product,
this,
our
I that.
team, our I, we, all, like I said, we, right? And it's just no one wants to hear about you. I'm sorry. Humans want to hear about themselves. We want to hear about ourselves. So talk about your customer first.
Wow, Anika, this was like amazing. I had like a probably less than 30 minutes with you, but I already learned a lot. And I know we're going to connect soon. We're going to chat more about things you're building, but I'm just so happy we get to share with this group and share your knowledge and help folks out there like bring new strategies and think different ways and continue to develop themselves. I think that's the whole purpose of this cohort is like, how can we keep like developing and growing and put
Yeah.
fear aside and just keep going?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, thank you. Anything you want to share or anything you want to say?
I just want to say thank you. I love this community. Because I know you keep saying that you're honored. I'm honored that you have asked me to be a part of this conversation. So thank you for having me. Thank you for everyone who's stayed on the call. And thank you for everyone watching the recording. I truly love this community. So I'm like, I'm here for it anytime you want me here.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you, Joey. Thank you, Michael, for always supporting and participating. Joey takes things like the hot potatoes out of my hand sometimes and he makes a miracle. So I appreciate y'all.